Hello, friends. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone, to this fifth session of the Global Interfaith Prayer for Healing.
My name is Reverend Cynthia Gale Bricks,
And I am Dr. William Keepin.
and we are the co-founders and co-directors of the Satyana Institute. We have two program areas, one being this one, the Dawn of Interspirituality, bringing people of all traditions, all faiths, and those who are spiritual but not religious together to become friends and to deepen into practice and deepen into the dialogue and the interfaith dialogue together. The other program area we have is called Gender Equity and Reconciliation International, and that is bringing people together around the sensitive and taboo, often taboo issues around gender and sexuality, and bridging those differences.
And we are also ministers of the Unity Center in Vancouver, Canada.
We welcome you this morning or this evening or from wherever you're calling from this afternoon to this time together that we have been being in, as Will said, for the last several weeks. And many of you have joined before, and some of you, maybe this is your first time. So this first part of our program will be in this format of a webinar, and you'll hear from the presenters. And then in the second part of the program, we'll move into breakout sessions where you'll have the opportunity to be with a specific presenter or speaker or teacher. We'll also have some community engagement. If you're on YouTube Live, then we welcome you. And if you'd like to join that part of the session, I think our back in support can get you the link because you'll need to go on the regular Zoom call. If you're new to Zoom, then you can scroll or take your cursor down to the bottom part of the screen and find the chat box. And in that chat box, you can chat with our staff and they will help you with any technological problems as best they can. But it's also a great place to connect as community and to give your responses and reflections and just say hello to the people around the world or the people in your own neighborhood. And whatever you'd like to put there as far as your comments and reflections for the presenters, those can be seen as well. So we welcome you again today. We welcome all our teachers and presenters, and in a few moments you'll get to hear from them, hear their voices and see their faces. To start out with, we'd like to thank our staff though, who are invaluable to this whole production taking place. And so we'd like to thank right now Garrett Evans, who is doing the production of all of this event. He is like a duck paddling his feet often behind the scenes, but doing a beautiful job of bringing us together and making sure things run smoothly. Jennifer and Todd Mackey, who are on the core team providing support. Antonia Porter, and let's see, Rory McAtee, Laura Williams, Ariel Patano, and Irina Kurcharenko. All of you have been providing such beautiful support. And then we have Sylvia Arrea, who is doing the Spanish interpretation. So welcome to our Latin American Spanish-speaking friends from all over the world, whether you're from Latin America or elsewhere. We also want to give gratitude to Nick Patton in South Africa, who provided the music each Tuesday morning, he's provided the music as you're entering. We have 3 co-sponsors, actually 4 co-sponsors, including our nonprofit Satyana Institute, Unity of Vancouver, Banyan Books in Vancouver, and Still Point at Beckside Spirituality Center. Thank you for all your support and for making this program happen. And we welcome you. Thank you for listening to our announcements. We have 2 more programs after this one. Next week, we'll have a panel of just women teachers. All are invited, regardless of your gender identity and expression. And but the teachers and panelists will only be women. And then the following week, we're going to have a young adult panel. And so with people who are probably under the age of 45, young adult is becoming higher in some ways, I guess. So anyway, this will be a very rich, it's young adult spiritual teachers and leaders, and hearing their voices in this conversation is really key and important.
So it's a great privilege to welcome you and to welcome our presenters to this next installment of this global interfaith prayer. And part of the reason we convened this was because this is a unique moment in human evolution. And it feels important for us to really ask, what is the deeper significance of this moment? There is a lot of suffering in many different ways. So part of the reason we've come together is to really open our hearts and pray together for those who are suffering, for those who are ill, for those who are caring for the ill, who are risking their lives to care for the sick, praying for those who are suffering in different ways, people who are not able to get enough food or are not able to get out of a tiny cramped little hut or whatever it might be, people who can't get home. In India, some of the migrant workers, these are real issues. And as we know, this crisis of the coronavirus has revealed and made naked many of the social inequities in our human civilization. So this is a very important revelation. It's not something we didn't know, but it's really in our face in a new way. At the same time, we are also coming together as a human family around the attempts to heal this and to address this. And so this is a remarkable level of collaboration that we're seeing across nations and continents and cultures. And so we feel that the religious leaders are also called to come together in some way and to really sink into this deeper significance of this moment. All of our scriptures call us to take refuge in something larger and greater than ourselves. And here we are, brought to our knees, if you will, by this coronavirus across the entire human family. So what better time for us to take refuge together than now? Whether we're taking refuge in the Dharma or refuge in God, what theistically or non-theistically, all the scriptures call us to take refuge. And when we do that, we are transformed from within, and we become that which we take refuge in. So as we turn inward and as we give ourselves inwardly, we are actually transformed from within and discover that our inmost essence is none other than that glorious, supreme absolute. So this is a very unique opportunity. And when we give ourselves inwardly to that process, we become that truth, we become that love. And it feels like this is a very remarkable opportunity for the human family to come together in that shared spiritual quest and realization. And that is our destiny. And why not now? So that's just a few opening remarks, and we'd now like to move into an invocation and introduce our presenters. So we're going to invite each presenter to give just a very short invocation, and then we'll move into a silent prayer. So we'd like to begin with Dr. Ann Holmes Redding.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Grace and peace to you all.
And Bishop Marc Andrus.
Jesus said, I will not leave you orphaned. I will pray our Mother, Father, God, and God will send you a new advocate, the Spirit of truth.
and Lama Palden Drolma.
O Mani Padme Hum, the light within each of us in our heart minds, the essence of who we are.
Dr. Ravi Ravindra.
Up Deepo Bhav, be a light to yourself, the Buddha said.
And Bishop Ivan Abrams.
Do no harm, do good, stay in love with God.
And now we're going to have a prayer from the children in Meru, Kenya, from our dear friend, Dr. Karambu Ringera's community of the International Peace Initiatives. So we invite you in this time to open your hearts to all that's already been shared in this invocation and listen to the children give their praise and prayer.
Ni wewe tu Bwana, ni wewe tu, ni wewe tu Bwana, ni wewe tu, sema ni wewe tu Bwana, ni wewe tu, ni wewe tu Bwana, ni wewe timba, ni wewe tu Bwana, ni wewe tu, oh, ni wewe tu Bwana, ni wewe tu. Hakuna Mungu kama wewe, hakuna kama wewe, hakuna Mungu kama wewe, hakuna mwingine kama wewe, hakuna mponyaji kama wewe, hakuna.
Now we invite you, everyone, into a few minutes of silence. So in whatever practice you have, however you call the centering of your heart or the divine presence into your heart, this is the time to bring that remembrance in right now. So for a few minutes, we'll just sit and I'll ring the bell at the end of that time. So greetings again, and we welcome you, and we welcome our teachers and presenters. And now we'd like to hear from each of the teachers and presenters. We're going to have about, each of you will have 3 minutes to speak. And if you come to that time, if you end sooner than that, that's fine. If you come to 3 minutes, you'll hear the bell ring. And that's just giving a remembrance of bringing it to closure soon so we can all have enough time to share. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Holmes Redding. Dr. Redding is a teacher and spiritual director, former Episcopal priest, and interspiritual leader who identifies fully as both Christian and Muslim. She is founder of the Abrahamic Reunion West and co-author of Out of Darkness into Light. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you. Just now, I got the message from the One, the Holy One, the one who has invited all of us here together today to speak directly to the One. O Allah, Al-Jami, thank you for gathering this beautiful, beautiful array of witnesses today. Help us each to remember that we have been called to come together in this moment, not just here today, but in this moment in history, to live fully into our calling, the calling of all humanity, to be in connection with you. And by being in connection with you, to be in connection with one another. This is a moment when we celebrate the connection, even in light of the occasion for the connection, COVID-19. Help us to understand that though we're in the same storm, we are not necessarily in the same boat. We're in the same storm, but not necessarily in the same boat. And COVID-19 has been an occasion for your revelation of both our fundamental interconnectedness, but also the rifts and the tears in the social fabric that we see in the unequal and imbalanced impact of this disease on humanity. Help us to step forth in all of our vulnerability and all of the imbalance, to join our boats together into a flotilla of consciousness, deepened practice, so that we may sail together towards the new world that you are revealing to us beyond the storm of COVID-19. Use us, O Holy One. Amen.
Thank you, Anne. Blessings.
Thank you for that beautiful prayer.
May it be so. Now we'd like to invite Bishop Marc Andrus. Bishop Marc is the Episcopal Bishop of the Diocese of California and the head of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. He is a leading climate activist and a specialist on the spiritual friendship between the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Thich Nhat Hanh. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Reverend Cynthia and Dr. Will and Garrett and all of your team, and greetings to everyone gathered around the world. It is good to be with you. This is an unprecedented moment. Unprecedented in that we are in it. We are in this moment the people who are called to respond, and unprecedented in the scale of what we are responding to globally as a planetary crisis, a manifestation now in a pandemic. But it is not a moment unprecedented in terms of human suffering and suffering on the planet. Others have come before us and confronted great, great problems. My friend Ana Hernandez, the wonderful composer and singer and teacher, has stitched together a small chant from two remarkable sources, very different from each other. One, a few words from Julian of Norwich, a woman who lived in England, in Norwich, in the 14th century. May I say the 14th century was a difficult time to be in Western Europe. It was the middle of what is called the Black Plague, which claimed the lives of 60% of Europe. It was also in the middle of the 100 Years' War, an unremitting war between England and France that devastated both countries and Europe. And she said this in a vision that she had: God also showed me a tiny thing in the palm of my hand, the size of a hazelnut. I looked at this with the eye of my soul and thought, what is this? And this is the answer that came to me. It is all that is made. I was astonished that it managed to survive. It was so small that I thought it might disintegrate. And in my mind, I heard this answer: it lives on and will live on forever because God loves it. And then she said, she heard, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Anna took that last phrase, all shall be well, and stitched it together with a startlingly beautiful statement from the contemporary Indian activist Arundhati Roy, who wrote The God of Small Things. And Arundhati Roy said, another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. She is on her way. And I'm not Anna, but I will try to sing her chant. All shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. All shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. She is on her way. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Bishop, all of the above, Marc Andrus. Thank you.
She's on her way indeed. Thank you. Thank you for that singing as well. So we'd now like to invite Lama Palden Drolma. Lama Palden is a Vajrayana Buddhist Lama, student of the revered Kalu Rinpoche, and founder of the Sukhasiddhi Foundation in the Shangpa and Kagyu lineages. Her recent book on Tonglen practice is called Love on Every Breath. Welcome, Lama Palden.
Thank you. Thank you. Such an honor and delight to be with you all here today. So I'd like to do an invocation and a refuge chant from the Tibetan tradition, and then I'll do the English in my own words. Sanje chudan suchi chup namla changju badu dani chap suchi dagi jinsu jipe sananji drula penju sanje drupa shu. We call upon all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, the Dharma, spiritual teachings, the noble Sangha, all awakened beings throughout the 10 directions and 3 times, from all traditions and those from no tradition. We call upon all these awakened beings to be present with us. We bring to mind all sentient beings throughout space, and particularly our human family, who is facing great challenges at this time in our current epidemic, the oncoming economic crisis, our climate crisis, the inequity among us, and many other issues. We generate vast compassion and loving kindness for each and every being of our world and beyond. We request the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and all awakened beings to hold us in your loving wisdom, to guide us, heal us, and bring us together that we may come through this crisis wiser, strengthened, and with more love in our hearts and minds, with the greater motivation to cooperate for the good of our human family, for the good of all beings everywhere, and for our beautiful environment that nurtures and supports us. We ask this in the name of all of us together. May it be so.
Thank you, Lama Palden.
May it be so indeed. Thank you so much. And now we'd like to invite Dr. Ravi Ravindra, a scholar, a physicist, and a personal friend and mentor for over 30 years. Ravi is author of 16 books on religion, science, and intertraditional spirituality, including new translations with commentaries of the Bhagavad Gita and the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and a much loved commentary on the Gospel of John. Ravi's joining us from Halifax, Canada. Welcome, Ravi.
Thank you very much. This pandemic has been a good reminder of something which is obvious, that myself and everybody else is here only for a short amount of time. Whatever we call myself, my body, my mind, will not exist more than a few decades. And also an important reminder, we have a linguistic habit to say, I am breathing, which could hardly be true. I could hardly create this breathing apparatus. I wouldn't have the foggiest idea how to do this. I am being breathed. Traditionally, for example, in the book of Genesis, it's the breath of God which is keeping me alive, or a particle of Krishna, which has taken on my body to make it alive. So a reminder which is made much more obvious by the current pandemic, something that it'll be also useful for me to remind people that although it is important for us not to forget this particular occasion, and whatever we can learn from this, and how can we bring something for the whole of humanity. But the number of deaths, if I actually count until the end of April, the data caused by this COVID-19 is much less than 1% of all the deaths which are being caused in any case. People often forget that in 1 year from now, we have 7.6 billion people on the planet, and the approximate age in the globe, world overall, is about 72 years. That means every year, 105 million people die. And as many, in fact, more are born. So one needs to realize one's transience. And then why is it that these subtle, large forces, whether we call it God or Krishna or Brahma, those are just labels. Why have they bothered to create me? And also to remind people here of something which is really a cosmological event, which has not been remarked upon very much, that the first time we have actually our astrologers, sorry, I should not say astrologers, astronomers have actually detected an extraterrestrial or extras outside our solar system, a comet, came into observation only at the end of October. And its size was 14 times the size of the planet Earth. And it disintegrated mostly in March until the end of April, completely disintegrated. I find it hard to believe that this kind of large-scale cosmological event will not have any effect on the Earth at all. After all, even the moon tides create so much impact on the planet. Why would not this, the first time we have actually observed this kind of comet outside the whole solar system? So my wish really for everybody is to see if I can remember again and again that very subtle divine energies have brought me about, are breathing to keep me alive. Then how can I in fact become my time, my energy, my body, mind? Can it become an instrument of the divine will? This is my prayer for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you, Ravi, for that beautiful prayer and that cosmic perspective. It's wonderful to have you with us today.
And now we invite Bishop Ivan Abrams, who is the General Secretary of the World Methodist Council. He is a recognized leader in the ecumenism and social justice based in Cape Town, South Africa. He is also active in the All Africa Conference of Churches and the Central Committee of the World Council of Churches.
And we're very grateful to Reverend Keith Vermeulen of Cape Town, who's a friend who introduced us to Bishop Abrams many years ago.
Welcome, Bishop.
Welcome, Bishop.
Thank you, Cynthia and Will, and warm greetings from Cape Town, South Africa. In many countries, including my own, we have been under lockdown for the past few weeks. Just a few months ago, we could not have imagined the changes and disruptions to our regular routines that all of us now collectively face. The corona pandemic has forcefully reminded us that we are one world, one humanity, and we are more interdependent than what we can ever imagine. To explain globalization and how small the world is, many of us have very often jokingly said, if one country sneezes, the other catch a cold. Now, we don't mean this metaphorically. it is a reality. If anything, the virus have made us more aware that we only have one fragile planetary home called Earth. It has also exposed the gaps in social and food security, as well as the deficiencies in global and national economic policies. COVID-19, I believe, offers us an opportunity to stand together and push the reset or recalibrate button to work for a transformed world in which we can share the resources, walk softly on the earth, and affirm the dignity of all humanity. As we navigate the future through uncharted waters, we need to tap into the spiritual resources of all religions and all persons of goodwill, from mosque to synagogues, churches, temples, ashrams, shrines, ecumenical bodies, civil societies, and business organizations. Yes, a different world is possible, and together we can and we will overcome. Gracious God, we walk with you, for you hold the whole universe in your hands. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Amen, indeed. Thank you for that unitive prayer.
Now we just invite a moment of silence just to hold all that has been shared so far. So we invite you to close your eyes or have a soft gaze for just a brief moment to be in your own hearts with the prayers and the wisdom and the teachings and the different perspectives that have been offered here so far. Now we're going to move into an interactive time with all our panelists and all our teachers. We'll bring you all together for a panel conversation for a few minutes.
So we'll invite you to unmute yourselves. And just by way of introducing the panel, in this time, many people are rushing, eager to get back to normal, to reopen the economies and to get their lives back to business as usual. But as we know, normal is the problem. And just like an addict, when their substance is taken away from them, they can't wait to get back to it. And yet it's the very thing that's killing them. And our normal ways of life need to be transformed in the way that all the scriptures of the world call us to. So the opening question for this panel is really, in this unprecedented coronavirus crisis, what is our highest calling? In this unbidden spiritual retreat that we're in, or that most of us are in, what are the most essential practices now? And as religious leaders from diverse traditions, how can we best set aside our differences and come together, as Bishop Abrams so beautifully outlined, bringing our congregations and our hearts together in unity of the human family so that we can finally create this civilization of love and truth on the earth. Corona means crown. And so it's almost like a crown of thorns, as it were, at this time. But how can this crown of thorns be transformed into a crowning moment for the human family when we can finally establish our beloved community on our sacred planetary home? So those are just some priming questions, and we'd like to open it up to the panel for whoever would like to speak, and please share the time and dialogue with one another and address these questions about how best for us to embrace this unique moment in human history.
And I'll just interject to add a little bit to that is what I've been hearing from many parents in particular who are at home now 24/7 with their beloved children. It's not so much of a retreat. And for those who are struggling just to get food on their table and clean water and they're unemployed. So I just want to name that the retreat it's varied. And some, it's not a retreat at all. So wherever you want to take this, we have about 15 minutes and we'll keep time for you. As we say in all our work, with many voices to be heard, please be compassionately brief, but bring your voice forward in the ways that you need to be heard and yes. And so the circle or the square of Zoom is open now. So as you feel moved, please.
I think a sense of emergency is almost necessary for us to take matters seriously. So this occasion is almost like a great teacher once said to me, if I don't see that the house is on fire, I don't find ways to get out of the house quickly. So here is an occasion where we can actually see that the house is on fire. And personally, from my point of view, the most important thing is for us to honestly and impartially watch what are the tendencies in myself. Am I wholly self-centered? Or am I in fact willing to attend to somebody else, offer some service? And this is why the reminder that whatever I call myself is very transient is always a very helpful reminder, because then one really wonders, how can I in fact connect with something which is not just going to disappear as my body mind dies? So as impartial self-inquiry, I hope will be caused by this pandemic.
Lama Palden.
I've been feeling much the same thing, that whether we're in a more retreat-like, if we're sheltered alone, or whether we're really in facing a lot of demands, educating our children and working at the same time and full-on action, that either way, a lot of the kind of adrenaline energy that fuels our lives in a lot of the Western countries or fast-paced countries, a lot of that has stopped, and it's an opportunity for us to really look at our own minds and to, whether we're with our family or alone, to really see what's going on with our mind. I think this way we can let go of some of the old patterns that aren't serving us any longer. And as you were mentioning too, Ravi, really look to engender more loving kindness for ourselves and everybody around us. And to really be willing to be taken apart by what's happening and to listen very carefully to the messages that are being given to us in our lives, to see where we can refine ourselves, where we can let this make us into better people, letting go of what isn't needed in our personalities and all of this and in our lives, and moving toward what is going to serve all of us in a much better way.
think that the pandemic is a great leveler. It offers us an opportunity for a new beginning, as well as an opportunity to rid ourselves of our cosmic vanity. It's a time to build new relationships, a time to find a new way of working in our homes and in our organizations, and a time for the wounded planet to heal. While this might be a time for special or for spiritual retreat, and for some to reconnect to their spiritual moorings and to reset their moral compasses, for others, it is a hellish nightmare of food insecurity and of gender-based violence. Imagine children and women in lockdown with their abusers, with their perpetrators, and who have no way of escape.
I've been pondering this situation, and I kind of, in my life, in the middle. I live by myself, and I teach and speak and lead in various circles. And I've been busier than ever in these times. At the same time, I can't help but notice that this pandemic and this period of time is happening in the midst of some seasons, religious seasons, that have converged at this time. And I am drawing on the fact that this is in the natural world, it's in my hemisphere, it's spring, it's rebirth. In Christianity, we're in the middle of the Easter season, also a time of resurrection and rebirth. And in Islam, it's Ramadan. And I'm learning from the practices of those seasons to have a kind of perspective on this time. We are always at every moment, and we've been reminded so beautifully by Ravi, that we're being breathed at every moment. Every second is a resurrection. And that it gives me great hope, great hope. From the fasting of Ramadan, I understand I've have to fast very differently this year because of the circumstances. And I'm fasting this year from the feasting that's also part of Ramadan because of the isolation. And feeling inside of me not only the hunger for God that I ordinarily feel in this season, but also the hunger for human connection. And I'm asking God to make a place in me through that hunger, through that fasting from feasting, that hunger to embody my connection with other humans. Just by missing the people I miss. And understanding that that's how connected we always are. And I take it for granted. And in this time, use this time of fasting to be able to deepen my connection. And also to find ways of being present in this time for those whose situations are very different from my own. Those who are being battered on a daily basis, and who are seeing the rips, the tears in their connectedness to the people closest to them, the people around them, and who are suffering from that.
Thank you, panelists, for all the wisdom that you've already brought forward and compassion. Will and Cynthia, your question about how can we not go backwards from this moment, it's a compelling question to me, and I heard a lot from the panelists that helps me. When we were hosting the Global Climate Action Summit here in San Francisco almost 3 years ago, we started it at Grace Cathedral with a multi-faith service. And there was a lot of help that I got from Kinkatani and other people in the interspirituality group. One thing that I brought forward in that was the experience of wonder, which is available to every human being. No matter where we are and who we are, the experience of wonder can come to us. And what I suggested at that service is that when we have an experience of wonder, it is an example of falling in love. And what we love, we will protect. What we love, we will protect. So maybe this is a moment when we have some space for the experience of wonder in a small way with another subjective being. And this, I think, is part of the call, is to understand that we're in a universe of subjects, not in a universe of myself as subject and everything else as object. But a universe of subjects. And when I meet another thou, that's an experience, a possibility of an experience of wonder. And I will give everything I have to protect that which I love. So perhaps we could emerge from this moment being fed by the experience of wonder that God provides to us in surprising and unexpected ways, with unexpected and surprising people and creatures and ecosystems that will be resolved when the pandemic is in another phase, at another time, will be resolved to protect that which we have fallen in love with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have just a few more minutes. So I just want to make a space for any other of the teachers, the presenters that may have anything else on your hearts that want to come forward right now.
One question I would like to raise, really, for some exploration, it actually arises, in fact, from a remark of the great Sufi sage Rumi: if you have not yet seen the devil, go look in the mirror. In fact, what it seems to me, that each one of us is a whole hologram. The whole external universe, in principle, can be mirrored inside us. In fact, in India, we even have these two words in Sanskrit. The whole universe is called Brahmand, and a human being is called Kshudra Brahmand, a small Brahmand, a small universe. So why would the devil not be there also? He was also created by God. He didn't create himself. He's also a son of God. In fact, the book of Job repeats it twice. when all the sons of God were gathered together. Among them was Satan. And so it's good for us to recognize that part also in us. What is the right place for it? For me personally, it's very striking, the remark of Christ. Get thee behind me, Satan. He's not asking him to disappear or die or whatever. In fact, even to help from behind. We have many, if you like, diabolical, strong forces in the world. To imagine that they can just disappear is just fantasy. Question really more is, how can they be in some manner, with a larger perspective, invited to assist so they can get behind us and in fact help? So I raise this as a question.
Beautiful question. Any responses, brief responses?
But to imagine, for example, you look at the people running 5 or 6 major countries or major military forces right now in the world. To imagine that they are angelic would be really quite a misunderstanding of the situation. I don't need to name the people. So how do we include their energies and forces? We tend to forget that Lucifer was the highest of all angels in the Bible. So it has a hell of a lot of energy. So how do we include this? Starting with oneself. I see the angel devil in myself as well.
Yes, Mark.
Dr. Ravindra, I think that part of what I've heard from Thich Nhat Hanh about how to respond to, how do we make allies out of the diabolical forces in the world, he would agree with you that we look not only in the mirror, but deep within.
Yes,
what he says is to look to the sources of your suffering, your own suffering. Look first at your suffering, and then look for the origin of your suffering. And that will generate the energy of compassion. And with that compassion, you're able to face those who do bring diabolical energies into their interactions and into their way of being in the world. So touching the source of my own suffering is generating the compassion that helps me face the diabolical and perhaps make an ally of it.
Any last comment? We need to bring closure. Or anyone else?
I was just going to say that perhaps when we face this energy within ourselves, with compassion, we're able to transform it into the helpful energy. There's a lot of power in our shadows, and if it's faced and worked with compassion, it can transform.
Thank you. I'll just close with one awareness that I've been having recently, and Ravi, you brought it up just with, I think with the addictions, one of you did, and just the paradox of those who deal with addiction and who are in recovery. And yet, as I've held those who are part of, for example, Alcoholics Anonymous, and that are in recovery, that they have been a channel and a portal for deep spiritual practice and wisdom to come through. And so I just like to, and so we know this terrain. Now, many people know the terrain of the uncertainty and hitting the bottom and coming out of it with grace and with awareness and with, yeah. So I just like to close us with the serenity prayer. And then I'll give some instructions for what we're doing next. So God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So thank you all for this deep and rich and enriching conversation. And now we are going to all beam ourselves into another modality of Zoom and meet all our friends who have been on the outer edges of this webinar, listening and chatting with us. And it's such a beauty to see all the chat messages and to feel that support out there as we've been on the inner circle in conversation. So all of you, and again, the people on YouTube Live, if you'd like to join this part, I think that our support staff can put the link in the YouTube Live for you to join the second part of this conversation. We'll be moving into plenary with all of us there. And during that time, we will move right after that, move into breakout sessions. So for all the participants and attendees there, you've gotten to hear from all these beautiful teachers. And now's your opportunity to choose one person, one teacher who you'd like to spend the next 30 minutes with or 20 minutes with. And so that's going to be difficult. It would be for me. But for now, what we're going to ask you to do, we're going to give you a few more instructions when we get to the other place, the other side of this Zoom call, about how to be in those breakout sessions.